boundless physical energy, the hallmark of the season of early adulthood. Maybe this stamina and strength are part of nature's grand design, because during this season of our lives, much is expected. For most of us, one of the great challenges of early adulthood is to establish an intimate relationship.
I don't want a housewife. I want a woman that would fight with me and tell me when I'm wrong and give me trouble once in a while.
In the years between 20 and 40, new responsibilities seem to pile one upon another. And in responding to these challenges, we can discover parts of ourselves we never knew existed.
There's a lot of things I'll have to give up because it's more than just a little boy. This is my little life.
In early adulthood, we find that the demands of work, intimacy, and parenting can conflict with each other. Toward the end of the season, we may find we didn't achieve our dreams the way we had hoped.
I feel very envious of people who have not only a happy marriage, but also are enjoying their children.
For many of us, there's still time to make changes or reaffirm choices we made earlier.
I think in terms of marriage that I probably picked about the best I'm capable of picking and being picked by about the best capable of picking me.
This is a program about growth and change in the season of early adulthood. With the help of experts in human development, we'll explore some of the challenges that face us in this season. We'll meet people who will share their stories, and we'll discover that their stories are part of our story, part of the seasons of life. Here on the campus at Carnegie Mellon University, as on college campuses across America, a significant rite of passage is taking place in the lives of thousands of young men and women. College graduation. For many, it's the beginning of early adulthood, our 20s and 30s. School years are ending, and the social clock, society's timetable for development, is ticking on. It's telling us we'd better start thinking about earning a living, about marriage, about starting a family. It's telling us that it's time to face reality, because in this season, our dreams can be fulfilled or deferred or changed altogether. The transition from adolescence to adulthood doesn't happen overnight, but for many young people, graduation is another step and a time to make some important choices that'll have far-reaching effects on the rest of our lives. For Justin Miller, a graphic design major at Carnegie Mellon University, the prospect of finding a job is unsettling.
The tension of school has made me think a little bit more. You know, the tension of finishing up and getting out of school and seeing my friends worried about finding jobs and myself worried about finding a job and what's going to happen next year. My biggest fear is that I won't be successful. That's my biggest fear above anything. I can't even define what that means right now.
In the weeks before graduation, Justin's been creating a plan for his transition to the world of work. An earlier summer job has already given him at least a sense of what to expect.
I was worried when I was working. I saw how people were treated and how much people were taken advantage of. Talented people, just because business didn't have a place for them, not because they weren't talented. Young people that like to work hard are perfect gophers for everybody else. You know, they can push them around really easily. And you can easily kind of get stagnant in some place and just never move anywhere. And I saw it happen. And that would be the worst thing that could happen to me. The worst. Hey, Cash. I find with my friends, even the art students that are painting, have this success, this future success story that they've got this picture painted for themselves of their own little life. And to get there, they're going to have to sell themselves out to a certain degree, even as painters. So have you sold any paintings lately?
Are you kidding?
You're going to sell me one?
I'll be glad to sell you one.
Yeah.
Which one do you want?
On student budget, remember.
On student budget. Now, you're going to be working dog soon.
Yeah. But when I speak of like my little philosophy that life is a business, for me it's more of an awareness of the way you're going to have to live your life today with a business society, a business-minded society in every aspect. I think about girlfriends a lot. It's something that's important to me because I want to know that somebody cares. Sometimes I come home from a great day and I go home to my apartment, I live alone, and there's nobody there. And I've got all these terrific things I got to say, but there's nobody around. One of my friends said something to me, it was really kind of nice. He said that all he wants right now is somebody he can put his head down on her lap and she'll just kind of stroke his head and be there for him and just talk with him and just somebody to feel close to.
At 21, Justin's professional plans seem firmer than his vision for his personal life.
I don't want a housewife as a wife. That wouldn't be enough for me. I want a woman that would fight with me and tell me when I'm wrong and give me trouble once in a while. The kind of work I want to do, I don't know if I'll be ready to have a family at 30. I think a family will really tie me down in many respects. It'll make working difficult or moving the way I want to in work difficult. My family's been there for me always, and I hope someday to be there for mine. I just don't know. I don't know how all that's going to work out. That's one thing I really can't predict. I can't even try.
Justin's really representative of hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of young adults like him today. Well-educated young men and young women who are working on their careers, investing in their professional life, and putting their personal life on hold while they do that. And it may be unrealistic for the young men in his situation to expect that they can find loving wives who are high-powered bank vice presidents during the day, and in the evening will come back and put their husbands' heads on their laps, stroke them, and ask them about their day. That may be asking a bit too much, and it may be that the Justins of the world will have to adjust their expectations to the realities of relationships when they get closer to trying to find someone to get married to.
Justin's like most college graduates today. They'll concentrate on work for the next few years and get around to thinking about starting a family later on. In Spanish Harlem, in New York City, one young woman doesn't have the luxury of choices like that. Here, poverty holds adults and children in a terrible grip. But Mei Ling Agosto faces the same psychological challenges as Justin Miller. Early adulthood's the time to come to terms with what happened in childhood and declare, now it's my life.
I remember it was around a Christmas time, and I'd ask my mother, well, Mommy, when's Daddy coming to bring us our presents? And she'd look at me. I knew that she knew he wasn't coming back.
And he didn't come back. Mei Ling was only 6 years old when her father abandoned her mother and 2 children to the streets of East Harlem.
I was married at the age of 15. My husband was 17 at the time. I'm 21 now. I have a 3-year-old son, but I've been separated for 2.5 years. Sometimes, in some cases, especially around my neighborhood, the husband becomes more responsibility than help. If the husband isn't going to do anything for you, well then, why not? What do you need him for? And it's not impossible to raise children by yourself.
Not impossible, but nearly. Mei Ling had been living in a 2-bedroom apartment with her mother, a sister, her sister's baby, her aunt, and her grandmother. The pressures exploded.
I had been working, going to school, and taking care of the baby. After a while, I couldn't take it anymore. They didn't want to open me a welfare case. And I was upset. That's when I began experimenting with crack. I had a nervous breakdown. I spent 2 weeks in Mount Sinai Hospital in the psychiatric ward. I felt like I had a lot of things I wanted to get off my chest, and my family didn't show up to any of the meetings, so I felt very neglected, very hurt, that after I'd done so much for my family that no one showed up. This way, Papi.
Every morning on her way to the daycare center, she takes Gil through a neighborhood that was largely abandoned by the city, neglected by developers, and desecrated by drug dealers.
When you have a child, you have to make a lot of sacrifices. There's a lot of things I'll have to give up for the sake of my son, because it's more than just a little boy. This is my little life. So it's part of me, and I'm willing to sacrifice. I'm without any regrets. No, yo me tengo que ir. I have to go. I have to go.
Mommy! Mommy!
You want a little juice? Drink the juice.
I want juice.
Drink some juice. You want juice? I'll speak to the teacher and how's he behaving, how's he eating, how's he getting along with the other children, and I'm off. Okay. Okay, bye, girl.
Bye, Mommy.
He loves it. He loves it, and I love it even more because he loves it. I know that he's being very well taken care of.
In the afternoon, Mei Ling learns how to troubleshoot computers. She wants to learn, get a good job with good pay. And finally, after a 3-year wait, an apartment opens up in the Bronx.
It's about time. I'm just very happy I've finally gotten an affordable place to live, and it's roomy. I looked in the cabinets and gasped. They were filthy, but I figured I could take care of that. When I get in there, I'm going to clean anyway. Even if it is clean, it won't be my clean. I'm going to leave the room for the baby. I'm going to have the, and I'll take the living room. I feel every child needs their own space, and so I should give him his room. I'll make sure his room is what every little boy likes.
I got your hands.
On Sunday morning, Gilberto's father takes him to the park. Mei Ling remembers her childhood.
It's important to me that little Gil has a life as normal as can be with his mommy and his daddy. I know how it feels to not have a daddy to come home to. And it always hurt me. I don't want him to feel that pain. He'll have both his parents the way it should be. I believe in that, regardless to whether or not the father and I together, Gil won't have to suffer this. Give me your hand.
Well, you know what I mean.
Well, let's take one step at a time. I do hope we'll get together again, but not right now. But we can't settle that just now. There's too much going on. We can't take on the world. I'm not using drugs. I'm in school. I've got proper daycare. Now I've got my apartment. I think it's very bright. It looks good, very good. It looks excellent. Now it's just up to me.
Mei Ling is slowly putting the pieces of her life together. She's struggling against the odds to keep her dream intact. Somehow, she's finding the strength to change the course of her life. For her, early adulthood is a chance to make up for those disappointments when she was growing up. All of us face challenges and difficulties in life, but a strong support system can make early adulthood a little bit easier.
Anthony, take this ring.
Approaching their anniversary, Anthony and Julianne Cugini recall their wedding vows and the shared beliefs that have sustained their first year of marriage.
And of the Son. And of the Son. And of the Holy Spirit.
Somehow I have this feeling that some people go into marriage with an attitude, well, if it doesn't work out, well, we could always change that. I think myself and I think Jolie also went into the idea, well, this is it.
Men must not divide.
As far as our Christian values, I kind of feel that's very important in my life, and we have very similar and very strong beliefs about that. We're both Catholic. We both decided that if we did have children right away, that we would accept that, and that would be something that we'd be happy about. We weren't going into marriage saying we'd like to delay childhood by birth control or something for 2 to 3 years. And it paid off, I guess. We have Anna Marie now, so it was a great decision as far as I'm concerned.
I don't think any words can describe the feelings you have after a birth of a child. I had so many people say to me, don't have a baby right away. You're foolish to have a child right away. You'll be tied down. You won't be able to work. You won't get any sleep. It'll be miserable.
Here we go. Oh, don't cry.
My mind never changed or wavered about having a child right away. Of course, I thought, well, maybe it will be terrible. And I thought about it, and I thought, how could it be?
There we go. We a little hungry, though, huh? Well, Daddy can't help when you're hungry. That's Mommy's job, yeah.
My husband and I, when we decided to have a baby, we thought we're going to make a child out of love. And when we look at Anna Marie, all I see is my husband and I and how much we love each other.
You
gonna bring the car up?
Yeah, I'll bring the car.
They can bring it up.
You can stand it with him.
Grandma wants to give you a big hug and kiss today. Come on. Come on. Let everybody see how beautiful you are. Yeah. That's it. We'll talk back to Grandma. Come on. Grandma hasn't held you today.
I think my mother and I have gotten closer during my pregnancy. I think what happens is I start to understand my mother's role, and then my mother starts realizing that I'm understanding what she was to me all those years.
If I could go back and do everything over again, it's great when you have those strings that you can just let go further and further away and still hold on. But I hope she's as happy with me now as I am with her, because she made us, her and Anthony, and the good Lord above made us as happy as we've ever been, even happier than when we got her, if that's possible.
Aboard a dinner dance cruise, Anthony and Julianne celebrate their first year of life together. The stressful transitions of early adulthood, career changes, marriage, and parenting seem to happen all at once. We may stop and ask if our life story is coming out the way we'd imagined.
I want to have a marriage work. That's what we wanted in the beginning, and that's what I still want. And that's what we work toward every day. And I look at Anthony and can honestly say to myself, I'm very happy with the choice I made.
I look back on this year and I've changed jobs. I had to change my career attitude slightly. My goal now is to get a full-time job to provide security for our family, to pay for the house and pay for her education and make sure that she'll have all the things that she needs when she grows up. So I think it's changed me a lot that way.
With their new roles and responsibilities, Anthony and Julianne seem satisfied and happy. Professor Yuri Bronfenbrenner says the reasons for their happiness can be a strong family and a set of shared beliefs.
There is this marvelous interconnection across the generations, which we see here. Her parents, his parents, they have to be there, not just once a year. They have to be around, or people like them, or other relatives. Somebody's got to be there to support and validate this family as a family. And that leads us perhaps to the most powerful factor. A shared belief system in which family and children and the generational interconnections are central in their worth. Belief systems especially are what carry us through. For this family, the birth of a new child is a celebration, is a time that, as we hear these young people talk to each other, that brings them closer together. Whereas for many young families in America today, the birth of the new child is new tensions, new stress, a lessening of supports.
Men and women today are finding new ways to negotiate the stressful challenges of early adulthood. As the social clock changes, the traditional life the Kujinis had chosen is no longer the norm in society. Fewer young people feel they have to get married in their 20s. In fact, many decide just to live together. Experts have begun to point to a new stage they call youth, a kind of protracted adolescence which can stretch right on through one's 20s. Early adulthood is changing in other ways too. Now the majority of married women work outside the home, and there's been a dramatic rise in the divorce rate.
Daddy, Mommy, Daddy, Mommy.
Was Daddy putting the ring on Mommy's finger?
Yeah.
Bill and Donna Radichai were just 21 years old when they got married 10 years ago.
That's my favorite picture.
Bill and I were in love. You know, it was passion. We couldn't wait to get married. And we didn't give ourselves time to really get to know each other, to see if we liked each other.
We buy each other a ring.
We found out we were worlds apart on a lot of things, our backgrounds, our beliefs, what we wanted for the future. And it was just almost impossible for us to make all that mesh.
I think our conceptions about marriage, about what we thought it was going to be like, a lot like in my part maybe, was from listening to other people or seeing other things. We're just coming from two different places, and instead of working on it or talking it out, we didn't realize that at that time. And, you know, now we realize it all, but it's too late.
Bill and I were married 5 years before, you know, we got divorced. I would say from very early in the marriage, things didn't seem right, and there was constant fighting. And finally one night, in the middle of a big blowout, you know, it was a terrible fight, I left the home.
Hey, hey, hey. No, you don't jump on the bed. You're going to ruin the spring.
You know, I thought by this point in my life that I would have my home in the country and, you know, have a husband and children, and it's changed everything I ever wanted out of life. You know, this is never the way that, you know, I wanted it to be.
Oh, we had dinner already.
Okay.
I'm scheduled till 11:30, so you know what that means.
3 years after the divorce, Donna is still trying to put her life back together. She's juggling college along with her responsibilities as mother and breadwinner.
Everything that I have to do, I have to have care for them.
He can go out for a little bit if you want.
I work hard. It's hard work. And it's not for a lot of money. The babysitter makes more than what I make. I've never had a night yet where I've come home and had more tips left over than what I've paid her. I'm working so that I can have an education, so that I don't have to do this for the rest of my life, so that I don't have to have, it doesn't have to be this hard. In the back of my mind, I'm always worried about how am I going to pay next month's rent? What if my car breaks down? What if I get sick? I don't have any hospitalization. I know that in the back of my mind, while I'm doing all the things that I have to do, I'm always worried about that, you know.
As part of the joint custody arrangement, Bill Radichai spends 1 day each week with his children.
When we first split up, I was, you know, real angry and real bitter, and I didn't want to talk to him, and I blamed him for everything. And it was kind of that way, you know, in the beginning. There was just so much emotion, and it took a while for things to cool off.
After wrestling, they're going to stay at my parents', and Saturday we'll just stay at my house. We're going to the play on Sunday.
You're all three going?
We're going alone. Yeah, all three. That'll be the rest of the day.
That's nice.
Don't kick it up in the plants and windows.
How's Glenda?
Gotta be a wise guy, huh?
From my point of view, it looks like I've suffered a heck of a lot more than he has, but I can't say that because I don't really know, you know, what he goes through. He has to hurt over not being able to be with the kids, but I know that, you know, he's been able to have relationships with a lot of other women, and well, I shouldn't say a lot, with other women, and, you know, it didn't seem to be a real problem.
I'll see you later, okay? Bye. Daddy's going to bring you home afterwards. What? Okay, what time are they coming home?
I've told you 50 times, about 1 o'clock. Oh, sheesh. How come these aren't?
You know, nobody's going to look at Bill and say, you didn't raise your kids right, you know, or blame him for what they went through.
Let's go, Beck.
I feel like it's all on me. I don't know if I'll ever get remarried because I don't know if I'm going to be that willing to bend, you know, to really adjust my life to someone else's lifestyle.
You're my Billy.
I've come a long way, and I've got a long way to go, and after I get there, I'm not going to hand all that over to, you know, just any man to come in and control my finances or my children, you know, or my life. So maybe I'll just stay single.
It's becoming very clear that a lot of women and children are hurt economically by divorce. By one estimate, the average divorced woman's standard of living goes down by maybe 30% during the first year after a divorce, while the average standard of living of a husband goes up somewhat, maybe 10 or 15%. That's because husbands retain their male earnings, which tend to be higher, while wives either retain their generally low-income jobs or, even worse, have to go back into the job market for the first time after being home taking care of children for years.
Out of the painful experience of divorce, Donna's found strengths and abilities she never knew she had. Divorce may be final, but that doesn't mean we can't create new dreams. Psychologists who study the lifespan tell us that people like Donna are not alone, that many people around the age of 30 consider making a major change, and that they have the energy to form a new dream or modify an old one. In Jeanette, Pennsylvania, the Wilsons have discovered just that. 1 year ago, their daughter Meredith arrived. Phil and Patty Wilson had been married for 9 years. Since Meredith's birth, Patty's worked as an emergency dispatcher. At 30, the Wilsons are beginning to wonder what happened to their early dreams.
Yeah. They wouldn't go out because it's raining.
Oh my. When I was 20, I never thought I'd be in Pennsylvania. I never thought I'd be married. I never thought I'd have kids. I wanted to be some hotshot, ace reporter, New York Times, or Newsday in New York, whatever it would take. I didn't at all want a husband. I wasn't looking for one. I didn't want to be tied. I didn't want to be restricted.
And I can just remember keep saying to her, there's no reason why we shouldn't get married. We're in love. Let's get married. And so she finally said, all right.
I think I had a TV image of what a husband would be like. I thought that I'd have a much more glamorous relationship with a woman. Sometimes on TV you see these women who seem like when their husbands come home they're relaxed and they've had some time maybe to talk with friends and maybe they were able to sun themselves in the afternoon a little bit, And I think that would cut my tension level in half, to come in the door and have this place be, a tranquil garden spot,
Come to Mommy. You having a bad morning? What's the matter? Didn't you sleep good last night?
The car seat's in my car.
Hey. Where are you going? We have not done yet.
Okay, I have everything. Let's go.
Okay.
We've gone through a lot of cycles of good and bad. A lot of problems with money, colors a relationship.
You gonna help me do my shoes?
I really don't know
take
where
them
they
off.
are.
Don't take them off.
Hey.
Oh.
We had never intended to continue on a one-income level. I can't be the kind of person that doesn't work. And Phil has known that all along.
It's been a real luxury for us to have my sister be able to take care of the baby because I don't think we could afford regular daycare rates. And in an emotional sense, we can trust my sister implicitly.
As a staff photographer for the Greensburg Standard-Observer, Phil prepares to shoot a Veterans Day story at a nearby VA hospital.
Those two guys said
I was the kind of kid that always put out a local newspaper, a neighborhood newspaper.
Very good.
And when I was 20, I was pretty well on the way to getting a job at the newspaper I'd wanted to work for when I was 10 years old. Well, there are limits as to where you can go around here as a newspaper photographer.
And I'd have to make a big jump, I think, if I were going to go anywhere else. And I'm not sure that I'm talented enough to go to a really bigger newspaper. And so I'll probably stay in my career now for the foreseeable future.
Where we are, this town, will be our home, to make some roots, to set up a foundation. And really, that too has strengthened our relationship. And of course, strengthened what we can offer the baby, too.
I don't want to cast a dim picture of marriage or any kind of a lasting relationship. But I think what I've found is the most meaningful things in my life with Patty haven't been fun. One of the most moving things that Patty's ever done for me is, you know, my family and my father probably gave the cue for this, are pretty tightly reined, emotional people. And at my father's funeral, Patty was the only one who cried. And well, now that I'm 31, I have a little girl, which has changed everything. Because I think my expectations for the future are sort of centered around what I can do for her. So far as I'm making plans, I'm really making them for her.
When she learned how to give hugs, I'll tell you, that was probably one of the sweetest moments. I'll always remember that.
You weren't expecting this.
Already she's given me so much, and she's only 13 months old. I feel like I found something that I had before, but I had no way to get to. Like a new room. Like a new room in your house that you've passed the door so many times, you never bothered to open it. Well, I opened it, and it's the best. It's the best room in the house.
These developmental transitions of marriage and of parenthood and of others as well enable an individual to discover and develop new parts of themselves or deal with parts of themselves that have laid dormant, have not been expressed, but have always been there underneath the surface. How those parts develop, whether or not the good comes out, whether or not the bad gets regulated so it's not too bad, will depend to great extent on who that partner is that we've hooked ourselves up with and now are traveling down the path of life with.
But many people don't marry, even though they have children. Today, 1 out of 4 babies is born to a single mother. Bronwyn Reed is 31. Her daughter Candy was born when Bronnie was only 19 and just out of high school.
I don't think I ever knew what I wanted when I was in high school. And I decided to just sort of hang out for a year or two, and was dating someone that I had grown up beside, and found myself in a position where I was going to have a baby. And it wouldn't have been a very good idea to get married. I didn't want to get married, and neither did he, because we just didn't agree about what we should do about the baby. Abortion never entered my mind. It entered it real fast and went right back out. But abortion wasn't something I wanted to consider at all. I knew that I had my parents' support financially and emotionally. And I knew that if something happened to me, that they would be there to take care of Candy. And so I decided to go ahead and be her mother.
Can you get me a nail?
Candy's always been real close to my dad. He used to call her my little sunshine, my little buddy. He's always been there for me and for her.
You wanted it even up there. That's where we'll put it. I don't try to interfere with Bonnie's life or Candy's life. If I can help them, I'll help them. putting it even, we missed everything. I mean, it's not easy out there, and I know it. I worked a long time, and I had raised 5 children, and it was a struggle. So this is a good thing if you have a partner, but it's kind of rough watching Bronny try to make out without one.
Good.
I like the work that I do at St. Margaret's, and but it's not the thing that I want to do forever. It's hard physically. It's hard mentally sometimes. Just being with people who are sick sometimes can get to you.
You have a good natural gait pattern.
Sometimes when you have a job that maybe isn't the job that you want, you have to seek fulfillment in other ways, and that's where music helps me.
That's terrific. How do you do those trills? Those are great. What do you do when you do those? No, that's wonderful. No, it sounds so instrumental the way you do that. That's really terrific. I think a lot of people would be
There are
jealous of
times
you.
I think I'd like to get married.
Let's go back.
There are other times I'm glad I'm not. I guess it depends on who I'm looking at, what situation that I'm looking at. Many times I've, been so grateful I never married. And other times I would give an arm and a leg for somebody else to talk to, someone to have some good times with, and someone on whose shoulder to cry. It seems like other people have developed their lives, and I haven't had a chance to do anything but music and work and being a mother. And it just does. I can't relate to a lot of the men in their worlds, people who have careers that they can be proud of. Sometimes I would just like to be everything, and I can't be. You work with what you have.
Bronwyn Reed, this past decade has been very difficult for her in coping with a job, in coping with child rearing, in coping with the absence of someone who is an intimate partner. Her life looking ahead, when her daughter in a few years will be independent, and Bronwyn Reed is still going to be quite a young woman. And if she's burned out as a therapist, she could have a second chance to train for something perhaps related to her passion in music. If you have a very early birth like Bronwyn, then you have a complex, hard, difficult 20s, but perhaps calmer waters in the early middle age that lies ahead.
Not a lot of study has been done on the 30s, but it seems that this might be a decade of consolidation in some way. You've hit the age of 30. You realize that your life story is very real now, and it may not be coming out quite the way you had hoped it would. But you're the author of the story. And there may be a sense in the 30s of beginning a new chapter, maybe climbing the ladder in your area of work, and maybe of coming into your own as a person a bit more. I say maybe because the older we get, the louder the psychological clock is ticking. And this is our own inner timetable. And it's unlikely that the psychological clocks of all of us are ticking in unison during this period.
Psychologists have described our 30s as a period of settling down. For some, it can mean moving into a new house.
One of the things I like about this place is that there are a lot of families around, and there are a lot of people making lives here, couples of all sorts of stripes and persuasions, and it feels like living in a community.
Hi, Dave.
Buying a house in the Park Slope neighborhood of Brooklyn has been part of settling down for Dave Nimmons and David Fleischer, who have been together for 4 years.
I was ready to not be single anymore when I met Dave, so I guess I might have settled down with somebody else, but I had been looking for a long time and there wasn't anybody much like him. He was somebody very special when I found him, so I guess maybe I would have settled down with someone else. I was definitely in a marrying mood when I met him.
And it's not hard as a rock.
Yeah.
Well, that's great.
We're very, very different people in many ways, but I was just struck by similarities in some real basic values. And I guess the most obvious one first was concern about politics and concern for the larger community. But then also just more personal things, just a certain compassion and caring.
Quite a good one. Yeah.
I was lucky to have the model of a really good marriage, which my parents were married 4 years when my mom died. So that was pretty much what I intended to do, and it was a good marriage, and I expected that's what I would do. I expected I'd grow up and have a house and some kids and a dog, you know, your basic thing.
Ready? Yeah.
There was one particular instant when I just realized upon waking one beautiful spring morning, it was as though I'd come out of a tunnel, and I finally said, this is who I am. The rest of the world's going to have to like it or get over it or decide they're not going to be around me. You know, I don't want to push my trip on people. On the other hand, I'm not going to do anybody any favors by hiding who I am. And at that point, I sort of was able to stand up and go, hey, this is what you got. This is me, and this is all of me, and if you like me, you'll accept that part of me, and if you don't, then fine.
Okie doke. Well, thank you for fixing dinner for me. Yeah.
It's a pretty equal partnership.
Yeah.
When I'm on a deadline, Dave's the one down doing the cooking. It's definitely a relationship of partners.
Settling down can also happen in the world of work. Dave Nimmons is a widely published journalist. Dave Fleischer is a union organizer who's coming to terms with the rewards and limitations of his career choice.
Dave and I earn very different incomes. He earns a lot more money than I do. To earn more money, I'd probably be doing work that I really didn't care for or that I felt was politically or morally wrong. Because most of the high-paying options available to people out of Harvard Law School are doing corporate law, working in a large firm, representing clients regardless of what they do and regardless of whether what they're doing seems to be beneficial for society or not. I feel a lot more fulfilled in my own life by doing work that matters to me and seems to really shape the world so that it's better. And Dave respects that.
Okay, so what do you want? You're going to hand me up the computer stuff? Yeah, you got that.
I think people
The order doesn't.
people I know who are in couples are really working at something, and that seems like a good and valiant challenge and a good thing to be doing. Now and again I stop and I go, God, what would it be like? What would I be doing now if Dave weren't in my life? Or I'll think, boy, how lucky I am to have found this, because it fits so well for me.
Throughout the season of early adulthood, there's been time to start a career, find a spouse, dream a dream. But by the end of the season, for women, one door is closing, and it's closing forever. Christine Osborne is a creative director at a major advertising agency in Chicago. She's 39.
Big black dog. It's getting better and better. Good.
I think that it looks as though I may have come a lot further along professionally than in my personal life, because a lot of people would say, well, I would say, as a matter of fact, I'm not married. I do not have children. If I had gotten married at any point prior to now, I would have children. They are definitely linked for me. But what's happened is I have not found the person I want to marry any more than I've found the job that I want to stay with and be committed to.
When Christine spends an evening with old friends, she finds the focus of everyone's attention is little Adam, who's almost 1.
Hey, Adam, what does the monkey do? Monkey goes, is this typical? Mama.
I feel very envious of people who have not only a happy marriage, but also are enjoying their children.
Go! Whee!
What I continue to hear from people who have had children is how much you experience a whole different kind of love. And out of that love, joy. Why can't I have that too?
Give me a boom. Give me a boom. Give Christina a boom. Go give Christina a
I
boom.
get warm and runny around babies. I love babies. I love Adam.
Boom! Goodbye! I haven't had a boom in years.
I'm going to be 40 this year, and there's only just a little bit more time in which I can have a healthy baby. It's biological time clock here. It seems that fewer men are fitting the picture I had of who I'd be settling down with. I haven't found what I'm looking for. I'm not sure what it is I'm looking for. Got to be about the right age. Got to be fairly intelligent. Unmarried. I'm trying to get a sense of someone's personhood. I'm very interested in what those values are. And then probably fairly soon into the evening, within the first half hour, I'm wondering if he wants to get married. It's always there, but you don't talk about it right away.
You've made this before? I've never made this before.
I have enough people in my life who are in my circumstances to know that I'm not alone. It's a fairly common feeling, and we feel all kinds of different ways on any given day about the way our life is. So we get together and we talk about that whole spectrum of feelings.
But there's always plans B, C, and D, you know.
Can you come back later?
You know, there's some people that are born to breed that are convinced that they want children.
Well, I pretty much have resigned myself to the fact that I won't have a child. And it's real hard to deal with. It's hard to talk about. It feels like a loss. For the first time in my life, I feel like people don't understand. Sorry.
Sometimes you cry, and the best thing anybody else can do is just
There's probably nothing I can say.
join you. I, for one, am real tired of feeling bad about it. I wonder if this has anything to do with my grandmother's dying words to me. She said, "You're too picky." There's very little anymore of what she got that I haven't got, or how come not me. I really have gone beyond that, I think. Hasn't happened. Now what?
At Union United Methodist Church in Boston, the Reverend Charles Stith leads a 600-member congregation. At 37, he's head of a large household. Charles and Deborah Stith are at the end of early adulthood. For them, every day is a balancing act between the demands of career and those of marriage and family values.
Many of the very positive things that happened to me in the process of growing up happened as a result of the church.
You know, every time I see you gathered at the foot of the throne of grace and mercy, I know anew what the hymnist meant when he said, "These are they who've been washed in the blood of the Lamb."
My mother and father were divorced when I was very young, and we grew up in the church. I mean, it was one of the things my mother was always insistent about. You know, from the time we were the very young kids until we were college age, as long as we were living at home, the standing rule, you had to go to church. It was during that whole era of the civil rights movement
when the really giants in our nation were church people. So I decided that the ministry would be that way in which I would seek fulfillment in my life and attempt to make a contribution to making this world in which I lived a better place.
If something is worth doing, get it done. It's putting purpose over process. If you're going to take that seriously, it means you can't have a "that's not my job description" attitude. If you put purpose over process, it means you can't have a "I'm not doing it because somebody else was supposed to do it" attitude.
I like pastoring my church. Somebody asked me, "Don't you see yourself doing something else?" I said, "No, I mean, now I've finally gotten this thing down right. I know how to do it. Why would I want to leave now?"
Charles prepared for the ministry at the International Theological Seminary in Atlanta. That's where he first met Deborah Prothero.
It was during my last year of seminary, and one day it struck me, I'm about to leave this place. You know, I need a wife. I mean, you know, you start to feel that inner clock starts to chime, and you know that, you know, there's something missing in your life.
Less than a year after they met, Charles and Deborah were married. That was 11 years ago. In that time, Deborah completed medical school. She's now Commissioner of Public Health for the state of Massachusetts. Percy is 7. Mimi is 4. Their nephew Trey and Deborah's mother are also part of the household.
Well, how's everything going down there?
It's great. I think I'm getting an A on this paper.
Hey, it's great to hear from you.
Charles and Deborah have found that the demands of their family can get in the way of their marriage.
Like any relationship, we have those little things. I mean, those points when you get pissed off about something. And it's about something that, I mean, why does she do that? I mean, she knows that I don't like, you know, something like that. I mean, why does she respond like that? I mean, doesn't she know the kind of stuff that I'm going through? I mean, she could be much more sensitive. You know, I really don't have to take this. This is it.
You don't like each other all the time. You know, you try to maintain a love that will carry you through, you know, through the times when things are not great.
And then, I mean, you start thinking about, you know, all of the issues relative to that, and it helps put the thing that you really ticked off about into focus.
The thing about struggling with a marriage and a relationship is over the long term, the reward is much better, much greater. And if you can keep that in mind, it's easier.
I think in terms of marriage that I probably picked about the best I'm capable of picking and being picked by about the best capable of picking me. So if this one didn't work out, maybe it would mean that, you know, marriage just wasn't for me. But I don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon.
And they change shape.
Great. All right. Now, what's the last one?
Stratus, cumulus, and
I'm pleased with the fact that I'm able to provide for my kids some of the material things that I didn't have growing up. And I feel good about having the opportunity and the privilege to do that. All right. There you go. Cumulus, status, stratus. I just pray that I can do half the job that my mother did in terms of instilling a sense of virtue, a commitment to someone else other than myself that my mother instilled in us.
Good night.
Good night.
Sleep tight.
Sleep tight.
Don't let
the
bed bugs bite.
The bed bugs bite. The bee bugs bite.
Night night. Night night.
You want me to catch up? No.
Charles and Deborah are at the end of the season of early adulthood. They've made choices that'll be hard to reverse, and they've come to terms with those choices. Whether our dreams have been fulfilled or deferred or changed altogether, new questions arise. Is this the life I want? Is it too late to make a change? And these questions take on urgency in the next season of life, middle adulthood.